in demand of urgent climate action. Here in Ghana, several students took part in protests demanding that government took action. The German capital, Berlin, has been a major focal point for the activists called Extinction Rebellion. They staged acts non-violent civil disobedience. Their protests come amid increasing criticism of the German government, which has been seen as dragging its feet on the carbon emission, although the German cabinet has just approved some measures on climate change. Let's bring in William Glucroft, who is political correspondent with our partners DW. He joins us from Berlin to give us information on what exactly has been approved. William, it's good to have you this afternoon. Here in Ghana, a plastic management policy was announced last week. Not a lot of noise have been made about it, though. But tell us what's in these measures that have just been adopted by Germany on climate change, which was approved today.
Well, let's first of all specify that this is not yet law. What's happened now is at the end of last month, Angela Merkel and her government, they had negotiations, the two parties, her Conservative Party and their coalition partner, the Social Democrats. They negotiated measures that they could take to reach certain climate goals, especially climate neutrality, emitting no greenhouse gases by 2050 is one of the big goals. They negotiated that at the end of this month, and what happened today was the cabinet, so the members, all the ministers of Angela Merkel's government met today in their regular Wednesday meeting and agreed upon what was negotiated. But that doesn't make that law. These measures will then pass on to the German parliament probably later this year for passage. And once that happens, then it becomes law, and then there'll be apparently binding measures that every aspect of the German government and extending into German industry would have to do to reach these climate goals. But this climate policy has been heavily criticized for not doing enough, not spending enough, not holding people to account, not having enough oversight, and really not having any consequences if various ministries or various industries in Germany don't actually meet the goals that are set out in the policy. So we're still a long way off. Of course, Angela Merkel has defended this policy, saying it's a big step forward. It's a lot more than certainly doing nothing. And she also was quoted as saying politics is about what's possible. And this apparently, despite all of the shortcomings that many of its critics say, is what's possible to get done in Germany right now.
So looking at what's possible, let's look at the protesters in Berlin and what they've been up to. I mean, they've been vociferous in this fight for climate action. What have they done so far, and how are they responding to the approval of these new measures, even though they have criticisms of it? Let's start with what they have done before today, the protesters.
Well, in regards to this, the particular climate policies that Angela Merkel's government has approved and looks like will become law later this year, they've been outright blasted by both Extinction Rebellion and other climate activists and environmental scientists, even members of the industry, for just not going far enough, not going to get Germany anywhere near the Paris climate goals that Germany, along with most other countries in the world, have agreed to. Now, you see behind me, this is actually where Angela Merkel works. It's a live pictures we're looking at of her chancellery, and this is really ground zero for a lot of this week's Extinction Rebellion climate protests. This is where it's been taking place. The protesters actually created a camp just to next to the Chancellery in the park here in the center of Berlin, with more than 1,000 protesters that are camping out for the entire week while they stage various protests and various sit-ins. We see beyond the Chancellery what's known as the Victory Tower. That is a major intersection where five lanes of traffic come into a traffic circle there. That has been blocked for 2 days and only has recently, latest reports show, has recently been cleared by police. And there have been many other places in the center of Berlin, major intersections, major places that have political prominence and places with large media exposure where activists have been blocking traffic, preventing transport from getting through, and really just trying to make their presence known and trying to get their call out that this is a climate crisis that needs to be taken seriously.
And a lot of people around the world feel the same way. Now tell us how they're responding to today's decision by the cabinet.
Right. Well, I think it's still very new, the cabinet's agreement today to the climate policy, but as said, in general, climate activists and scientists are extremely skeptical of what Germany is proposing. Let's not forget, Germany is the 6th largest emitter of CO2 gases in the world, which makes it the largest in the European Union. So it plays a huge role in both the problem and potential solutions for climate change. And critics just say it's not going far enough. And that's exactly what this week of climate protests, of civil disobedience, want to accomplish. The activists say their goals are climate neutrality by 2025. That's less than 6 years away, rather than 2050. They want climate change to be called a climate crisis, and they want a citizens' assembly that would help government policymakers and politicians make decisions and come up with solutions for climate change.
Interesting. I was going to ask you about why there seems to be a huge expectation on Germany when it comes to this subject, but you've answered it partially. But then again, help us understand a bit further, elaborate a bit further. Why is it that there is so much particular focus on Germany when it comes to climate change?
Germany is one of the largest economies in the world. It's a huge industrial export power. It's also well known for its cars. So it very much has dirty hands when it comes to exacerbating the problem of climate change. And because Germany is so big, both within the European Union and on the world stage, it is looked to as a leader for finding solutions to what almost every country in the world agrees to, and almost every climate science agrees to, that the human population is facing dire consequences in the years and decades to come if global temperatures continue to rise beyond the 1.5 degrees it's already risen since industrial times began 150 or so years ago. So Germany really is being looked to and being under the microscope, you could say, for what they're doing. Angela Merkel has already admitted that the 2020 climate goals that they set for themselves about a decade ago will not be met. And even the 2030 goals are looking to be in question. And then beyond that, 2040 and 2050, that is what climate scientists and climate activists are saying. The current policies being put out that have been agreed to today by the cabinet just don't go far enough. Incentives for less driving, for more trains, for higher cost of using fossil fuels. It's just not enough to change behaviors to make a huge impact. And as said, Germany is the 6th largest emitter of greenhouse gases in the world. So it does have a major impact. Its economy, its economic might, and its production has a huge impact on the rest of the world when it comes to climate change.
Well, certainly climate change will continue to dominate our discussions, and we'll certainly look forward to having them and hopefully get the right actions taken, at least in the eyes of these protesters. William, thank you so much for that update. Like William said, right behind him is where the decision has been taken, or where that decision has been taken, well, meant to be made law as we go along. We'll see how that goes. William Glowcroft is political correspondent with our partners DW. He joined us all the way from Berlin here on The Pulse with me, Gifty, and our peer.